Nazi.
Scene 1, Selma, Alabama, 1965.
The 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote way back in 1870.
But nearly 100 years later, black people were still being denied access to the polls.
300 people have marched to the courthouse in Selma, Alabama to register to vote. Most in line won't be allowed inside.
I was there when Amelia Boynton and other civil rights leaders led these marches. These events often ended with all the marchers being arrested.
An old farmer was trying to register, but he tried to take the literacy test.
Literacy tests were rigged for failure. White people didn't have to take them.
Who was Zachary Taylor's vice president? Why let it be?
You're running outside the line, old man. You failed already. You can't register. You can't vote. You may as well quit right now.
You can't tell me I can't register. I'll try anyway.
So be it, but you won't be voting in this county.
The farmer already knows the clerk will use any excuse to deny his application. He also knows his name will be published in the newspaper just for trying.
Black people who tried to register were often fired from their jobs or run off their land. In some places, people were required to pay poll taxes in order to vote.
Despite the risk, black citizens continued to wait their turn outside. The people in line shaped the determination of the song.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
Scene 2, Brown Chapel.
I was just 8 years old when I risked my life to be Dr. Martin Luther King's youngest freedom fighter. Whenever there were civil rights meetings held at the church, I would sneak out of the house to attend.
Cheyenne and her friend Rachel follow the crowd to Brown Chapel. Dr. King spots them right away.
And what is it you girls want?
We want freedom!
I can't hear you.
We want freedom!
This time I want you to say it like you mean it. What is it you want?
Freedom!
That's the way I want to hear it.
Scene 3, Still a Slave.
One night during the second week of the movement, I began to run a fever.
You've been out in the cold and rain too much, young lady. Other folks can sing tonight. You need to stay in bed.
Mama brought me some soup, and we talked about my great-great-grandmama who'd been a slave.
When they was free, they didn't have the money to go up north, so they just stayed right here and worked for next to nothing.
Did she ever try to vote?
In those days, no one could vote, not even the white ones. She did say some of the men got to vote for a while, but the white folks cut them off, and before long, they lost their rights.
I don't understand how that could happen.
It's because they were scared. Grandmama said she'd folks whipped, and even though they'd been freed, they never forgot.
I remember thinking that 100 years later, nothing much had changed. As I drifted off to sleep, I heard the sound of singing coming from the church.
Oh, freedom! Oh, freedom! Oh, freedom over me! Over me! And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
All of a sudden, it struck me that if I kept on marching, I might die. I thought of those 4 little girls down in Birmingham who'd been killed by a bomb. I imagined being struck by a deputies club.
Cheyenne gets out a pencil and paper.
I decided I should write my obituary, the words that would appear in the newspaper if I should perish. Cheyenne Webb, 8 years old, was killed today in Selma. She was one of Dr. King's freedom fighters. She was a student at Clark School, Selma. Cheyenne wanted all people to be free and happy.
Scene 4, Bloody Sunday.
The marches continued throughout the winter months, but when a young civil rights activist was killed by police in a nearby town, James Bevel, Dr. King, and others organized a protest march from Selma to the state capitol.
When the march begins, the crowd is nervous and worried. No one talks or sings.
I was near the front of the line when we got to the top of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We saw what awaited us on the other side.
Hundreds of troopers with clubs and gas masks stood blocking the highway. Behind them were the sheriff's horsemen.
A lawman yells through his bullhorn.
Don't stop right there now. Don't go no further.
Sir, may we have a word?
There'll be no talking today. Get him back to the church. You've got 2 minutes.
I reached up and grabbed the hand of the lady walking next to me.
Don't be afraid. I know you're young, but don't be afraid.
What's gonna happen?
I don't know, but remember what you've been taught.
What we've been taught were the principles of nonviolence, to turn the other cheek.
Rebels, EOMs, turn toward the marchers. Brothers and sisters, kneel down and pray.
Charge on, my man.
Before anyone can stand up, state troopers rush into the crowd, swinging their clubs.
Run! Run for your life!
I remember the screaming. There were people everywhere jamming against me, pushing me.
Tear gas canisters belched clouds of smoke.
I remember seeing through the haze of the horsemen coming toward me. They had on those awful masks. I heard the hooves on the pavement and I turned and ran.
Television crews were on hand to witness the violence. The cameras showed horsemen trampling protesters, troopers wielding clubs, and people tumbling down the ribbon.
As sirens blare, gun-toting troopers chase marchers back to their homes. Everywhere, people are crying. Cheyenne's parents, aroused by the sirens, wait anxiously at the door as she comes running home.
Cheyenne, thank goodness.
Cheyenne falls into her mother's arms.
You all right? You hurt? Mama, I can't stop shaking.
If they want it this way, I'll give it to them.
I remember watching my father grab his shotgun and head for the door, but Mama got in his way.
That'll just get you killed. Now you calm down and help me take care of Cheyenne.
In later years, Mama would tell me it was my courage and persistence that made her actively join the movement. But just then, we just sat on the couch, hugging and crying and staring at the floor.
Scene 5, our own funeral.
Death was all around us during the movement, but I was still determined to go back to Brown Chapel. That night, my eyes were still burning from the tear gas. I walked into the church and found Rachel.
Inside, things seem hopeless. The only sound is that of sobbing.
It's like we've had our own funeral, Cheyenne.
Yeah, but it ain't just the marchers who took a beating. It's a whole movement. We let that thought sink in a bit, but then someone started humming.
You hear that, Cheyenne?
Sounds like a funeral hymn.
Listen closely. You recognize it?
It was real soft and low, but soon I did recognize it. Then we started humming along. Then people started picking it up, and it started to swell. And suddenly, we were all singing and clapping.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
Maybe we want something today after all, Cheyenne.
They can break our bones, but they haven't broken our spirit.
Scene 6, march into Montgomery.
Around the world, television networks broadcast footage of the attack.
Sure enough, people everywhere were outraged. They were calling it Bloody Sunday.
Because of the publicity, President Johnson sent troops to protect the marchers.
And 2 weeks later, I joined a spirited crowd of over 3,000 people marching up to the state capitol building in Montgomery. It seems like a march into heaven today.
Ain't we?
Scene 7, the Capitol steps.
By the time Dr. King began his speech, the crowd had swelled to 25,000 people.
Even my mother and father were there for the big rally.
Today, I want to say to the people of America that we are not about to turn around. We are on the move now.
Yes, sir!
Let us march on poverty until no American parent has to skip a meal so their children may eat.
Yes, sir!
Let us march on ballot boxes until all over Alabama, God's children will walk the earth with decency and honor.
Yes, sir!
Scene 8, the voting booth.
Soon thereafter, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law.
It gave African Americans the rights that had been promised nearly 100 years earlier.
But as I look back on it, the real victory wasn't that we marched to Montgomery. The real triumph had been on Bloody Sunday, when we turned a brutal beating into a non-violent victory.
Cheyenne's parents have a surprise for her. For her birthday, they became registered voters.
We're proud of you, Cheyenne.
Now we want to show you what we're fighting for.
That's right, we're voting today, and you're going with us.
When they arrive at the voting precinct, Cheyenne watches her mother make a check mark on her ballot.
That's it? Just that?
That's it. It's just like Dr. King said. If you can't vote, you ain't free.
That, Cheyenne, is freedom.